Or maybe you'll do this. So you might end up with a crossed finger, or you'll just fake it, you'll lose the chord at that point. But if your concept is you want to hear the whole note ringing, and that's really your musical idea, then it's worth figuring out some way to create that effect. Maybe you'll give up one note in the chord. I gave up the third of the chord, and the chord was just these two notes instead. I lost that note. If you want to get really absurd, then you can start doing this. I can't, but you can. So there's usually some kind of fingering that will solve the problem. Most likely one you haven't thought about, and it'll take you into a kind of strange position. My experience with this style, though, has been I've gotten so flexible with fingerings as a result of having to do this all the time, both in real time and then going home working out little things that repeatedly don't go smoothly, that when it comes time to play with a band and play something like more the normal style of guitar that I was used to before then, I have incredible flexibility in my left hand to just about do any kind of chord voicing I can imagine, all kinds of things that I wouldn't have thought were possible before, or transitions from one chord to another that I wouldn't have imagined being able to pull off, now are really pretty easy to me because I'm just in the habit of working with that all the time. So it has all these kinds of unseen fringe benefits. So let's look at another rhythm or two you could use with this. There's an extremely common rhythm. I've heard it called the Charleston rhythm, this one. Here it is with the bass. Okay. You could also sustain one of those notes. Sustain the first one. Notice I'm fingering in a different way both times because I'm just doing this in real time, and if I didn't get the fingering right the first time around, I'll change it in order to get the sound I'm looking for the second time. Or you might sustain the second one. I don't think that'll sound very good. That doesn't sound very good at all. Let's do it anyway. So it's worth looking at sustain also as a way to vary the rhythms that you're doing. It won't end up being a big difference in fingering, but it's a great big difference in sound. Okay, so what you want to do initially, I'm going to back up one step because I've seen some people take to this very quickly, and I've seen some people have a great deal of difficulty with it, and for myself it's been the same thing. Certain rhythms turn out to be very easy for me, and certain ones turn out to be really hard when you get into independence. At the point that you run into one that's difficult, and let's imagine that one of these is difficult for you at this point, then the thing to do is break it down, simplify everything else. And this always applies when you're trying to work on more than one thing at a time. When you think about it, music is comprised of a lot of things all the time, and so this really applies all the time. If what you're working on is too hard, find a way to simplify out some of the variables or some of the issues that you're dealing with so you can focus on the others. In this case, you're really talking about some issues of independence in the right hand. It would be worth doing nothing but this. Because you may have a tendency to do this instead. Where the bass line is actually going, because you find it difficult to separate the thumb from the fingers. Again, this is something I've done a lot, and if you've played certain kinds of finger-style guitar, it won't be any problem for you to do this. If you've always played with a pick, it could be a completely different story. Again, simplifying is a good idea. Likewise, with this independence of feel that I'm talking about, it's worth, there are 2 or 3 kinds of exercises you can use. One is playing the specific musical pattern, making a point of holding one finger down. It doesn't even have to be a musical pattern for that matter. It can just be the act of holding one finger down while you separately attack the chord with the other fingers. And you'll notice that I'm not even plucking it with my right hand. What I'm trying to do is get a kind of pianistic approach to the neck, where my hand is down when I need it and it comes off the note when I don't need it anymore. So you get something like this. Or Now, your first finger won't always be on the bass. It happens that that's one of the easiest ones from the standpoint of independence. But let's imagine that let's say you're right in the middle of a chromatic line. Your second finger is on the bass, but you're still on that chord. This is much harder to do for me, and I'm assuming for you, but you should do it. Likewise, well, if I can't do it, I shouldn't ask you to do it, but you should do it anyway. If not that chord, some other chord, in order to develop the independence by which you could hold one finger down while attacking with the other three fingers. It's easier with your pinky. So along the way, you're going to find that any different finger might be on the bass note. And that also has a lot to do with voicings, which is a related subject here. Your whole career won't be just spent going from G13 to C9 to the third fret. You may very well be going anywhere, and you may happen to land on any finger and need a particular chord. Let's say you're going, and somewhere around in here you decide you want a chord. Okay, well, you're already on this finger, so that means these three fingers have got to find the chord. But there are probably all kinds of G7th chords and G13th, G9th, and all the other related chords around here. It's just a matter of mapping out the notes. I mean, it happens that we've got the same ones available. But then we've got this one, that one, that one. You could suspend it. This is all while this is happening in passing. So you get the idea here. You don't have to always be thinking about the standard chord forms that we've all grown up thinking about. This is to try to widen the focus for a moment. This is one of the things that I've found plagues guitarists all the time. It certainly did me for a long time, which is a kind of, I guess it's an insular approach to the guitar in that we develop these little islands where we're safe in fingering. You know, I've got this one, I've got one up here, maybe I've got this one, maybe I even know my inversions, and I've got this one and that one and that one. But still, these are what some people call grip chords, ones that you learn, but you don't see all the other available chords around there. It's worth, especially in connection with this kind of style, it's worth trying to develop all the voicings you can so that you'll be more flexible, like a pianist is. That should be your goal on guitar, to have the kind of flexibility that a pianist would. And the biggest differences are that it's easy to see on the piano and it's easy to play. And those are two pretty big differences. So what I would encourage you to do is, let's say that it's a G7th chord or G9th or G13th. Just try to visualize those notes all up and down the whole fingerboard, every note that you might find in a G dominant chord. So let's say we'll include all those notes. The root, the ninth, the third. We'll skip the fourth because that would be a suspended chord and that's a different sound. The fifth, the sixth or 13th, the dominant seventh. You're back to where you started from. Okay, now you're going to find those on all the strings. Oops. So they're all over the place. Now this is the way a piano player sees quite naturally, because you can see what notes you're playing all the time. Now once you've got those mapped out, and I would suggest that you write it out unless you're really familiar with this, then just start combining notes, work your way up the fingerboard. These are more or less random combinations of those notes. Some should sound good, some should sound kind of strange. Maybe in doing this process you might start to see some voicings that you would never have even dreamed of playing, and start thinking about ways you might figure out to actually physically play these. For example, if you happen to come across this combination of notes functioning as part of the G7th family, then by the time you've gone through this process, you'll be thinking about what are some adjacent notes on one of these strings. Okay? For example, you could raise or lower this note on the string.